everyone, and welcome back to the Cozy Chair. I'm so glad that you are here today because I have some really awesome books to tell you about. So my friends at Libertas Institute sent me a series of the Tuttle Twins books. And these Tuttle Twins books are really great at teaching kids things like our economy and our government, our laws and our rights, and things about the golden rule. And we're going to go through each one of these books at the end of this book, and I'll tell you about what these books are about. I think that these Tuttle Twin books are really great for homeschool moms. And if you have any questions, you can go to TuttleTwins.com. And the best thing is they gave us a promo code. So you can get 50% off all of the Tuttle Twins books with the code COZY, capital C-O-Z-Y, all capital letters. So make sure you go to the TuttleTwins.com and you can find these books. So I'm going to read this one, my favorite one in this series, and I'm going to have to shorten it a little bit because it's pretty long. But make sure to stick around to the end of the video where I'm going to show you all of these really cool books. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the things that they teach in those books. So here is The Tuttle Twins and the Miraculous Pencil by Connor Boyack, and it's illustrated by Elijah Stanfield. Now, in this book, you're going to learn about the division of labor and the economy and competition and really important things in the business world. Okay, so it looks like the Tuttle Twins are going on a field trip. Have you guys ever gone on a field trip? So fun, right? Ethan and Emily Tuttle had been looking forward to their class field trip for weeks. They loved experiencing new things, especially when they got to leave school for the morning. Isn't that so fun when you get to leave school, get on a bus, and go somewhere new? Well, they made a list of field trip ideas. Look at these ideas. They could go to a restaurant or a farm, a computer company, or a bakery. And they decided to go to a factory. Have you guys ever been to a factory? This is what they're imagining the factory is. They decided they would visit a factory where the workers make things that students use, such as pens, pencils, notebooks, and rulers. Miss Minor hinted that they might even get a souvenir. Wouldn't that be cool? Have you guys ever been to a factory? When the bus arrived at the factory, the kids were a little disappointed. It was nothing like they imagined. One of the kids groaned, "This looks boring." That didn't look like the factory they imagined, did it? "This looks boring. There's no way anything fun happens here," everyone complained. Another complained, "I wish we went to the cinnamon roll bakery instead." "Don't worry, kids," Miss Minor said. "The magic happens inside." Should we go in? Let's see what's happening. They all shuffled inside and walked past a large room full of machines. One of the workers waved to them. The kids all stopped and pushed their noses up against the glass to get a better look. "Look at all those cool things that are happening in this factory." "Look at that paper," shouted Ethan, pointing through the window at a large rolls of paper that looked as big as the school bus. "Come on, everybody," said Miss Minor. "I bet we'll get a better look at those machines later." The students were led to a room where a friendly man greeted them, handing each of them a pencil. You all have seen a pencil, haven't you? If you have a pencil at home, you can take it out and look at it while we read this story. "Welcome, everybody," the man said. "My name is Carl, and I work here. Can all of you do me a favor and hold up the pencil I gave you?" They each held up their pencil. Emily stretched hers high into the air, twirling it between her fingers with the hope of being noticed. "Here's my question for you as we begin today," said Carl. "Do you think the pencil you're holding is easy or hard to make?" A couple of the kids quickly said, "Easy." And then everybody else said the same thing, copying the students who had answered first. What do you think? Do you think it's easy or hard to make a pencil? "Well, I'm going to make a bold claim," Carl said as he smiled. "That pencil in your hand is actually extremely difficult to make. And surprisingly enough, not a single person on the face of this earth knows how to make one." Ethan and Emily looked at each other with looks of disbelief on their faces. "That's impossible," shouted a girl named Jessica. "Then how can there be any pencil if nobody knows how to make them?" "That's a great question," said Carl. "Let me come back to that after we talk a little more." He then turned around and drew a bunch of lines on the whiteboard. So this says pencil, and all of these pieces, go into making the pencil. This is kind of like a family tree, which lets us see all of the people who help us make who we are, our parents, our grandparents, and so on. Look at that pencil in your hands, he said. What are the parts that make up a pencil? And where did they all come from? What's the pencil's family tree? Let's find out. Wood! Shouted Ethan excitedly. His classmates joined in to provide a list of other pieces. Lead, an eraser, some metal to hold the eraser to the pencil, and some paint. Carl wrote them down. Great! Now I need a volunteer. Here she goes. She's raising her hand. How about you? He asked, pointing to Emily. I want you to try to continue this chart. Start with the wood. Where does the wood come from? Emily stood up and wrote tree in one of the circles of the family tree. And how does the tree get from the forest to the factory? Carl asked. Well, some people would have to cut it down, Emily said, and then they would have to put it on a truck. She then wrote saw and truck on the family tree. Let's keep it going, said Carl, as Emily sat down. What materials would a person need to be able to make a truck? Oh, did you see what happened there? Instead of stopping at the pencil, we need the truck in order to transport the wood. So now we're talking about the truck. Ethan's hand shot up. You would need fuel so you could run, and lots of metal, and rubber for the tires, and you'd also need rope to tie the logs to the truck, he said as Carl wrote them on the board. Do you see how the pencil tree keeps getting bigger? And now we're talking about the truck and all the things that make the truck work and the fuel that makes it go. Does anybody know how to make rope? Carl asked. And nobody raised their hand. Think of all the hemp plants that need to be grown to make it, and the equipment used to water those plants, and the machines built to harvest them. Oh my goodness, look at all of these things that are interconnected just to build a pencil. And all of these workers need to eat, right? Carl continued. We can't work without eating, so we have to also think of the farmers, the grocery store employees, and the cooks. Did you think about those things when you thought about a pencil? We need all of those things to make a pencil? One of the students asked. Nope, we need all of those things and many more just to get the wood for the pencil, Carl said with a chuckle. The students were amazed. Now they were beginning to understand that making a simple pencil was not so simple at all. Do you see all of these parts? They all have to work together. Now let's learn about other parts of the pencil's family tree, Carl said. Carl started a video chat with a smiling woman who waved to the children. This is Mary, everybody. She's in charge of buying the best materials from all over the world for us to use. Wow, where are you, Mary? Asked Emily. Well, I usually work in London, she responded, but today I'm in South Korea. That's very far away. To inspect some graphite we want to buy to make pencil lead. What's so special about South Korea? Carl asked. Why don't we buy it somewhere else? That's an important question, Mary said. We want to sell our pencils at a low price, so we have to find the best materials at the least expensive prices, wherever that might be. This means that people all around the world compete for our business, she said. Look at her. She's in a mine way far away in South Korea, so they can get the lead. Mary explained how the graphite they purchased is mined in a large open pit and then heated and compressed in a processing plant. The graphite is then packaged and shipped to another factory to be mixed with clay, wax, and chemicals. More pieces, more and more pieces. I visit many places around the world buying different materials to make our pencils. The yellow paint called lacquer is made from castor oil, which it comes from plants grown in India. Mary said, look at that. Did you think that South Korea and India and all of these places were used? Oh, what about this? Look at this. To make our erasers, we buy rapeseed oil from Indonesia and oil from rubber trees grown in Africa. Whoa, you should look at a map and look at all of these places. We also use pumice from Italy to make them gritty so they work better, she added. Wow, look at that. Just to do that eraser, they have to go to Africa and Indonesia and Italy. The ferrule is the small piece of metal that helps secure the eraser to the pencil. Mary explained we cut them out from sheets of brass we buy from people who mine the zinc and copper ore. They melt the metals, mix them together, and press them into sheets for us to use. I wonder where they get that. Each step in the process requires big machines and many people from all around the world working together, said Carl. The different parts are finally shipped to us, and we put them all together to make a pencil. The kids waved goodbye to Mary as Carl led them to where they could see the factory floor. Ethan craned his neck to better see everything below. He could see the wood pieces being cut, glued, and attached around the long, skinny pieces of graphite. A large machine was also spraying the yellow lacquer onto each of the pencils, and another was attaching the eraser with tiny ferrules. Emily closely inspected every part of the pencil she was holding. It was so interesting to think about all the people who had worked together to make it and how the different parts came from all over the world. Now that factory doesn't look boring, does it? That factory looks very interesting. Look at that giant tree now. Isn't this crazy? After returning to their room, Carl directed everybody's attention to the whiteboard. If we were to write a pencil's entire family tree, it would be very, very large. Ethan was trying to remember all the things involved in making a pencil, but there were so many that he lost count and forgot some of them. Remember what you asked earlier, young lady? Carl asked Jessica. You wanted to know how there can be pencils if nobody knows how to make them? Do you know now? I think it's because nobody knows how to make all the different parts of a pencil all by themselves, she replied. That's right, Carl said. If you tried to make a pencil without anyone else helping you, it would be impossible. How could you travel all around the world to get the materials you needed without ships or planes? He asked the kids. Look, he's imagining how he would get all around the world all by himself. I don't think it's a very good idea. How would you gather each of the materials without tools and machines, or put them together without factories? Carl asked. See, look, here she is. She's trying to get graphite and pumice and rubber and copper and clay and wood. She's pretty tired. And if you were busy doing all of that, when would you have time to find food to eat or build a home to live in? Carl stretched his arms out to say, that's why it takes millions of people working together. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who live in different countries, and who never even meet one another. Look at that. Isn't that so interesting? It takes people all around the world to be able to do that. Do all those people even know they're making a pencil? Wondered Ethan aloud. No, they don't, replied Carl. Let's think of it a different way. What type of work would you like to do when you grow up? The kids shouted out their answers, including a house builder, a teacher, a musician, a farmer, an astronaut, a scientist. Ethan wanted to be a basketball player. There's the basketball player. And Emily said she wanted to be a doctor. The logger who cuts down the trees for the pencils doesn't know if the wood will be turned into furniture, a house, a pencil, or something else. Carl responded. He may not even like using pencils. The same is true for the doctor, who might treat the logger and his family, the farmer who feeds the doctor, or even the musician who entertains the farmer. He added, almost every job you can think of may actually be helping to make part of the pencil without the person even realizing it. And that's how it works for everything that's made, right? Emily asked. Not just pencils? Definitely, Carl said. Your clothes, your backpacks, your shoes, everything you own and use requires many people working together. Remember, added Mrs. Miner, the economy is made up of people buying and selling things. If people tried to make everything on their own, they wouldn't be able to, and life would be hard. This book teaches us that we need each other, doesn't it? But because we divide up the work into different jobs, each person works on something that others can use. She said, we work together automatically without even really knowing it. There's no boss telling everyone what to do. This is something we call spontaneous order, and it's the reason why we have so many wonderful things today, said Mrs. Miner. Look at all those things. These are things that you do, right? You go to the grocery store, to the market. You might go to the art supply store, or you might go to the hardware store. You might go to the toy store where they're having a sale, or even buy a donut. It's time for you to head home now, said Carl. But before you go, take another look at your new pencil. Millions of people, including me, helped me make your pencil, but we don't know how you would use it. Will your pencil draw plans for a new invention? Will it make a work of art? Will it help you do your homework or write a letter? The pencil's family tree continues with each one of you, and it will continue on and on for as long as you keep making new things with it. Carl waved goodbye to each of the students. I hope you do something great with your pencils, he shouted as they loaded back onto the bus. So what did you all learn about today? Asked Donald, the bus driver. Mrs. Miner, with a smile on her face, quickly answered, They all learned how to make pencils. Right, everybody? Did they all learn that? The kids laughed, and Ethan shouted, I don't know how to make a pencil, Mrs. Miner. Nobody does. For the rest of the trip home, Ethan and Emily took turns looking through their backpacks, wondering about how all of the miraculous objects were made. It was like a new world had been opened up to them, imagining the entire family tree of everything they saw. Isn't that a great book about our economy and how we all have to work together? Well, I'm going to show you all of these books now. Well, I hope that you guys liked that story about the miraculous pencil. And now, whenever you look at one of these, you're going to think, that's pretty neat. It takes a lot of people and a lot of people working together to make something as simple as a pencil. But also, now that it's sharp and ready to go, you can make amazing things too. Well, now it's time to tell you about these amazing books. I wanted to tell you a little bit about what each of these books teaches so that you have an idea of which ones that you would like for your family. So this one, The Search for Atlas, I thought was a really fun story because it's about a circus and the strongest man, Atlas. Well, he decides not to stay with the circus. So then we learn about things like supply and demand and incentives and work ethic, right? How did he become what he was? And should he be paid more than the other clowns? And a lot of interesting things like that. So I liked this one. I loved The Creature from Jekyll Island because this one is about money. It's about how to protect our money, or what's a medium of exchange, or what about inflation, and how do we have an economy? Can we barter? What things can you barter? What things can you not? Okay, what about this one? Who doesn't love a food truck? The food truck fiasco is a really fun one because it's about protectionism and about profit and having capital and competition. Is having competition good for your business? Is it bad for your business? Well, you'll have to come read with the Tuttle Twins to find out. Then we have the one about the law, and this is a really good book for kids to understand what is a state, what is under jurisdiction, what are our rights, what are our laws, what is our conscience. This covers things like that. Show business. Now this one is really fun because the Tuttle Twins want to start a new company. So then they have to think about what's our budget, what is an entrepreneur, what is equity, what are our expenses, and also what is a monopoly. All of these terms are always explained in the back of the book. There's a glossary at the end of each one of these books, and it will help you talk through these things with your kids, or you can read them if you're the child reading. You can understand a little bit better. I really wanted to read this one too. The Golden Rule is a great book as well. It's not only about treating others the way that you want to be treated, but it's also about collaboration, or if you have revenge, you might get blowback. What is justice? What is the Golden Rule? And how should we treat others? So that one's also a favorite. The Road to Serfdom is a pretty complicated thing about collectivism, eminent domain, and individualism. So these are all ways for your kids to understand big, complicated topics in a children's book form. So it's really amazing what they've done. I liked this one, The Fate of the Future, because it talks about government, society, state, jurisdiction, coercion, and things like that. And last of all, An Education Vacation, because this one is about the Tuttle Twins when they take an education vacation. Instead of going to school, they learn how to learn in a different way. I was a homeschool mom for 2 years and I absolutely loved it. And we took a vacation from our typical school, but we still had a fantastic education. We learned how to learn in a different way. So I hope that you like these books. And remember that if you go to TuttleTwins.com and you use our promo code capital COZY, then you get 50% off. So I think that's really great. I am so thankful for our friends at Libertas Institute that offered us that. So last of all, I just wanted to tell you about that little box right there. It's called the Tuttle Tales, and it's a little card game that you can play that uses these same characters, the characters from the book and the topics from the book, and you get to pick a setting and you get to talk through these things or tell stories, create your own stories about things in government or about propaganda or about exchange, work ethic, or your society, your government, or your golden rule, all of these wonderful things. So it's a really fun card game. I hope that you guys had fun today, and I hope that you'll come back because I have more fun things happening here on the Cozy Chair. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.